Welcome to episode 64 of Tools in the Hall. After dark. I've got 3 handguns to show you. Stick around. You're gonna love what you see because they are very high quality indeed, and I'm stoked to be able to show you a new variety of handguns after we're done with all the tools. But first, we're going to start with some non-tool items that every tool truck has to have, including my own. And for a long time, I resisted expanding this idea because I have beef jerky that sells really well. And I thought that maybe it made sense to expand that offering, offer some different snack foods, but I didn't know exactly what that would be. So we had beef jerky for a long time. We also had just like a trail mix for a long time too. And these are staples. So we have bags of trail mix. We have packs of beef jerky. And as my wife Kathy was doing the reordering of our jerky, she was looking around on our supplier's website. And she said, hey, do you want to try some other stuff? I said, it might be worth a shot to expand that offering a little bit. And the reason I resisted it for a long time was because you have to be careful when you're selling anything, really, about giving people too many choices so that one of two things happen. Either they have a difficult time making a choice, or you wind up driving sales away from one of your products in favor of a new product. And then you have old inventory that you can't do anything with. Especially if it's food, you have to worry about spoilage. So that's kind of what goes on in my mind. And I know that there are other tool trucks that offer lots and lots of snacks. They have varieties of all kinds of things, candies and chips and stuff. Honestly, I think that's too many things because they're going to be left with stale, unsold inventory. And I don't want to put myself in that situation. It doesn't make any sense to. So we did expand. So in addition to the beef jerky that we normally carry, we are now going to carry Jack Link's beef stick and cheese. It's a 2-pack. And the original double XL Jack Link's beef stick. This thing's like 18 inches long, weighs 2.2 ounces. So I'm going to have a heck of a time trying to display these on the truck somehow without not falling over because they come in a, well, I'll show you. They come in a display pack, and they're heavy. I don't know how I'm going to display this on the truck. I'll figure something out. I don't know what it's going to be. But so we got new snack foods now. I'll be stoked to see how well those do. Tools. Let's get to it. Coast lights. You've heard me go on and on and on about Coast lights over the years. Say it with me. Lifetime warranty. Dual power. Focusing beam. And the best part of the warranty policy is that I can replace a broken one by swapping it out with a new one. I don't have to send these in for service like we do with Streamlight. And the other benefit is price. These cost about, let me hear you say it, half of what a comparable Streamlight product costs, except for these pen lights. These pen lights are about the same as the Pro USB stylus lights that Streamlight makes, but most of Coast's headlamps and flashlights, even their work lights, are priced very nicely compared to Streamlight products. So I give the edge to Coast because if you were to put this side by side a comparable Streamlight product and you compare warranty, those two features I told you about, the beam and the dual power, and the warranty policy and the price, people are going to choose Coast the vast majority of the time. So it's the one I keep on the truck, even though I do sell Streamlight products. I don't normally stock them. And if somebody wants something, I can order it for them. In fact, it just happened the other day when someone was looking to replace a lost Streamlight Stinger that he had. He asked me what the pricing was. I showed him. He goes, gee, yeah, it was kind of expensive. I'll have to think about it. I'm like, yeah, I figured you would. In the meantime, I was talking about the Coast stuff just to give him that comparison. So we'll see what decision he wants to make. At least this way he can choose whatever option is best for him. And to me, that's the name of the game. You don't want to be a tool truck that's just bound to one brand and have some blind loyalty toward that because it's all you can get. I have a plethora of brands available to me as an independent tool truck operator, so I can order lots of different stuff and give people a true choice, just like you're shopping any other store, and that's the way it should be. A customer came to me the other day with a set of drill bits. They were titanium coated bits, and I don't know the brand. It wasn't marked anywhere. I don't even know if he remembers where he picked them up, but he had a bunch that were broken, and he asked me if I could get him some replacements. Yes, I can, and there's lots of choices there, depending on how much money you want to spend. Here's what I was looking at when I saw this and I talked to him. He was happy with the bits that he had. They were not the highest grade bits you could buy. He did not spend much money at all on them, and he wasn't looking to replace them with a really expensive high-end bit like a Ken Cut one, or even ones from Irwin, which can be kind of pricey. So when I looked at, I think he only needed like 4 sizes or something. I'm looking to cost out what those replacements are. And I found that what I could get was an entire 22-piece set of titanium coated bits from Titan for $1 less than what it was going to cost me to replace those individual bits with the next comparable thing. Now, I can't buy the Titan bits individually, which is why I couldn't offer him like dirt cheap pricing on the same bits. But what I'll do is I'll say to him, hey, look, here's an entire new set if you want, and you'll save yourself $1. I have a hard time believing he would say no to that. So, I mean, this whole set's only $24. Are they high-grade bits? No. Will they last him a long time if he uses them properly? Yes. And what I do for everybody who purchases drill bits is I give them a little bit of coaching on how to properly use them. And that is this: low RPM, choose pressure over speed, use a cutting oil, do not start a pilot hole because most bits are not designed to enlarge an existing hole. And once you know that, here's the other thing: don't lend them out to anybody, because I promise that you will not get them back in the same condition you handed them out in. And especially with a high-end bit like Ken Cut bits, where they are pricey and they do not carry a warranty, when you lend them out and someone drives them high speed through a dry hole and they give you back a dulled or broken bit, man, someone's gonna have to pay to replace it, right? So when I give people that advice, hopefully they take it to heart and it changes their approach if they were drilling a hole perhaps a little more haphazardly than they are if they have that information. So drilling a hole is more complicated than it might seem to be, because you can't just take a bit, go as fast as you want, smoke the thing, and then get mad at the bit that it broke because it's not the bit's fault if you're not using it properly. Everything has its limits, especially drill bits. When there's not a lot of metal there, you heat those things up, you're changing the temper of the metal, it's going to get more brittle. So go slow, keep the heat down by not running them as fast as you think you might, and using a cutting oil to keep it cool and lubricated. And no matter what, make sure no one else uses them. So you keep bits close to the vest, especially if you spent hundreds of dollars on the set, like a good set of Ken Cut bits will cost you. I got a customer that works at a paint and body shop who is probably watching this video right now. So Tyler, if you're watching, these are for you, bub. He said, do you have 5-point Torx bits? And yes, I do. They're not very common at all. And he said he was seeing them more frequently on some stuff. So he needed 5-point tamper-proof Torx bits. And our pals at CTA have a set. You can see the configuration of the diagram right there. And you can see the tips of the bits there. 11 pieces. It's a 2-piece press fit design. And they run T8 through T30 in quarter drive, and then 3/8 drive size says T40 through T55. And for $54 on the tool truck, not a bad price for a specialty bit set. Hey, would you like a free straight die grinder from Ingersoll-Rand? Of course you would. Who wouldn't? You'd be silly to say no. Composite body, so it doesn't get cold in your hand. Good, powerful little motor in these guys. Easy to access collet. Requires 2 wrenches to open and close like your standard collet type on most every die grinder. Air powered, of course. How do you get one for free, you ask? Well, that's a good question. And there's the catch. You have to buy a brand new Ingersoll 2235 Max Series half-inch drive air impact. And this one is in their snazzy new green color. They have orange and red now available, in addition to the standard bluish gray color that they've had for a long time. But this guy is a beast. This has 1,350 foot-pounds, a breakaway torque at 85 RPM, 8,500 RPM. And this is the workhorse of air impacts. This is a tried and true model they've had around for years and years and years. These things go strong all the time. So why is a customer opting to buy a new impact that's air powered when most people are opting for the cordless stuff? This particular customer is a little more old school in that he likes and trusts air power, and I don't blame him. They are remarkably reliable, especially when you go in for the 2235 series from Ingersoll. You cannot go wrong with that as an impact. He's not using it anywhere but the shop, so he doesn't mind relying on an air hose to be connected to because he's not taking it out, say, to a parking lot or doing any mobile work, and he's not taking it back and forth between the shop and home. So why does he need a new one? Because I have on my bench right now a broken Matco 3/4 drive impact, and he has in his toolbox a broken half-inch drive Matco impact. Both are made by Ingersoll, so they're very similar. Why are they broken? The 3/4 drive one, the spline drive broke off the rotor, and if you watch the video I'm making on that, I'll tell you why that is. It's a very interesting problem. You don't see it very often at all. His half-inch fell apart, and he took it apart already. When I looked at it, the anvil that runs down in through this housing here, inside, the anvil was all broken. The hammer cage that holds the hammers was broken. And if I remember right, I think the spline on the rotor was broken too. So the whole thing fell apart, and some damage begot other damage in there. Next thing you know, the whole thing's broken. So he told me that he brought it to his Matco guy, who said it cannot be fixed. And I said, did he tell you why that was? And he said, yeah, parts are not available for it. And I said, well, at the risk of telling you he's either grossly mistaken or lying, I'm going to tell you he's either grossly mistaken or lying. And I'll show you why. We get on the truck, I go on my computer, and I go to my parts supplier, a company called Power Tool Repair. They are in Ohio. If you need parts, contact those guys and order your stuff from them, or you just go right on their website and order it up. It's very easy to use because they have a whole search feature that you can bring up by manufacturer and by part number what model tool you have. They break down the entire thing in a schematic. They price out every single part there, and they tell you right there if they're in stock or if they're on back order. So we looked up the broken parts on his Matco Impact, and sure enough, there were the parts. They're all listed right there. And while we're at it, I looked up the stuff for his 3/4 as well. When we priced out the half-inch parts and the cost to repair, it was going to be a little over $200. If we were to do that repair, we could restore that thing like new, but of course there's no warranty. So he was going back and forth on what he wanted to do. So he had an opportunity here to buy this, get the die grinder for free because Ingersoll has this package deal going right now, and these are on sale on my flyer. So he was getting a sale price anyway. He liked the idea of having a brand new version of the tool because the Matco one he had is rather old, and save a few bucks because it's on sale, gets a free die grinder out of it, and gets something brand new out of the box that should last them forever and a day. If not, it has a good warranty on it. And when it's out of warranty, they'll be making parts of these forever. So there's never a problem in getting them repaired. Even if you have an old impact with some other brand, and I'll bring up Chicago Pneumatic as a great example of a company that stands behind all their stuff. They have parts available for their stuff too. So it's odd if you can't find parts availability for an air tool even if it's pretty old. So always ask and see if something's available. Look at Power Tool Repair's website and see if they've got something listed there for you, because they list everything by brand and by model number. And it's always worth looking into, because it might just be that someone either does not know or is lying because they would rather sell you something new than fix you something old and not make as much money. And you have to look out for that. I think the funny thing about this is that my customer goes to his Matco guy and he's told, sorry, I can't get the parts for it. And it might just, and let's just say that, you know, the guy was wrong. Well, okay, you could have gotten a sale for repair out of it. And let's say you were lying. You missed that sale. And guess who got the sale? This guy, because my customer decided to order it. So that goes to show you the value of your relationship with somebody. And I'll continue this story because there's an interesting backstory to it. So the whole thing started when I walked into the shop and I was curious about doing repairs on these things. And I wondered about the kind of grease that Ingersoll recommends you use for the hammer assembly, because they have a particular grease that say is suited for it. But there's no information on the package as to how that grease is formulated or why you'd want to use it for that. So I know this customer rather well. We've known each other for years. So I was interested to know what his thought was on different types of lubricants in this application. So I say, hey, what do you know about different greases and all of that? So he starts telling me what he knows and what they use at the shop for certain things. And I was talking about these, and he says, well, you know, I've lubricated my own stuff too, and this is the grease I've used. So this is how this conversation goes. And as we're talking about this, he says, you know, interesting, Liz, I have a broken 1/2-inch impact in my box. I said, do you want me to take a look at it? He goes, well, the Matco guy told me he couldn't get it fixed. Blah, blah, blah. And while we're in his box, he says, you know, I also have a broken 3/4. So I said, let me take a look at that too. Then that's how that whole conversation started. We got on the truck, we looked up the parts, that whole thing. So I can attest that a lot of good things come from conversations. And without selling somebody on an idea or pushing something or planting seeds in someone's head to buy something, the next thing I know, that whole conversation is parlayed into an air tool repair for me for his 3/4 gun and the sale of a new 1/2-inch for me. So the customer is going to get back great working tools. I'm getting 2 really good sales out of it, all because A, he and I have a really good relationship, and B, we had a conversation. So if you're a tool guy out there and you're wondering, how do I maybe lubricate some sales and maybe how do I win some people over if you feel like you're having a tough time, get to know your customers. It takes a while to establish those relationships. But if you're sincere and you genuinely want to know people, that's where you start. And then ask them questions, rely on their knowledge to help you. All of a sudden, this becomes a mutually beneficial relationship where I can benefit my customers by selling them what they need on finance terms they can afford. They help me by giving me information about things I might need, like lubricants and tools and stuff like that. So don't look at it as a one-sided relationship. Look at it that we all need each other in this industry in order to make money. I need them to buy stuff. They need me to sell stuff. I need them to give me information. And it's this wonderful, wonderful cycle of us all helping each other out. If you work on big trucks, and in particular trash trucks, you may find yourself needing a 4 3/8-inch 8-point wheel bearing lock nut socket in 3/4 drive. OTC's got them. This one is going to my friends at Waste Connections, who give me a lot of business. I'm very grateful for all that they do for me. As a result, I do all I can do for them. And it's great that the manager of that facility will call me or text me and ask me to get him stuff for the shop, or him personally, or he'll tell me what some of the guys might be talking about needing, and I can be Johnny on the spot and get them stuff right away. So I'm very grateful to those guys. They give me a ton of business, and this is going to them. They asked me for the size down from this one, and then they asked me for this size next. So the cool thing about dealing with those folks is I've established this relationship with them years ago. So I've been servicing them for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years now. And when you have the kind of relationship that I have with them, it means a lot. And it's a constant flow of rather good business. Any tools that are used on large trucks are going to be kind of pricey. And when the shop decides that they're going to buy what they need, then it's very easy for me to make some money. And I appreciate that, because it's not easy all the time to make money on people's $30, $40, and $50 weekly payments selling ratchets, wrenches, and sockets all the time. So when I get the chance to make some sales to a shop, it's great business, and they give me plenty. And they have long before this been buying gloves from me, so I've been restocking their cabinets regularly every week across 2 of their facilities. They've bought shop equipment from me. They bought wheel dollies from me and brake drum dollies. They've got 2 purchase requests that they're working on their end for me to get them a drill press and some other stuff. So I'm so grateful that they give me the business they give me, and that lock nut socket is going to them next week. In a strange coincidence, I had 2 customers in the same week tell me that they lost their 8-inch pit bull diagonal cutters from gearwrench out of the set of 6 pit bull pliers that they bought. I thought it was an odd coincidence. These guys aren't at the same shop. They don't even know each other, but they both lost these in the same week. So I've got a couple of replacements of these coming in for those guys. You know how it goes. One guy buys one thing and everybody else has to jump on the bandwagon. In this case, the Topdon BT600 battery tester was purchased by a customer that I have at Waste Management. They also work on trash trucks. And he was the first customer of mine to buy a Topdon product since my distributor started selling the line. So I said, do me a favor. Please give me feedback on what your experience is. Good, bad, whatever. I need to know. These units only cost $150. They're fully digital, easy to read display, only a few controls. They have a printer in them. These come with the unit, the cables, the clamps, and 2 rolls of printer paper. For $150, you can't beat it unless it's a piece of crap. And I don't know whether it's a piece of crap or not. Well, I delivered this to my customer, and later that day, he texted me and told me he loves the unit. He said it is faster and easier to use than the Midtronics units. Now, Midtronic's been in this business a long time. They are the de facto and battery testers. To know that Topdon can come up with a product that beats them in performance and ease of use and wallops them in pricing, I am all for it. So after I talked to him about that, and I think I may have mentioned this on a previous tool haul video, if you guys saw the video and they want these. This one is going to our good friend Cass Nichols, who you have seen on this channel many times, good buddy of mine, great technician and a co-owner of a really busy shop that is, they got more business they can shake a stick at. So I'm really happy for him and all the guys that are at that shop. They're making it happen. And this is going to him. And I have another one for a really great young fella named Ryan, who has been a really good customer of mine now for a couple of years. He and I first met when he worked at another shop, and then he left that shop to go work at a different shop that I still service. He recently bought an Autel scanner from me, and he is one of these guys who is young and really interested in learning and growing and just getting as much information as he can about stuff that he's working on. He's not afraid to make mistakes because he learns from it. He just graduated from UTI's diesel tech program, and he's been lighting it up. And he's a great guy, just a great customer too. He's given me a lot of business, and I'm deeply grateful to him for that. So he watches these videos too. So Ryan, I know you're watching this one. You'll have this before you see the video, but he watches the video, he gets information from it, and in turn, he gives me information on what his experience is like with certain products. So it's a great relationship that we have going there, and he's getting his BT600 Topdon battery tester next week. Lisle has a brand new product called the Radiator Genie. One wand you hook up to your air supply. The other wand you hook up to a water supply, and you get pressurized air or water that shoots out of the end of these guys, and you can use it for hard to reach places and radiators. I mean, you own this. You will probably wonder how you lived without it for so long, because this will make cleaning hard to reach places so much easier. And a customer ordered these from me. They cost $60 for the pair, and they're in the flyer right now too. So I'm stoked to get a new product that I can offer up to people, because I'm going to be putting this on the truck as a regular item. I have a feeling it's going to sell way better than I think. And of course, when I think that, it usually doesn't sell that well. But I am confident in this one because everyone's got blowers. But this one has a longer reach than most, and it has this cool, wide, flat opening on the end with a little angle on it there. It's gonna change simple tasks, making things that much easier, faster, and more effective. So when you look for a tool to build some efficiency into your day, this is that kind of tool. Anything that can make you a little more efficient is going to earn you a little more money, because a few minutes that you save using these tools, and a few minutes that you save using a Forma funnel, and you'll save a few minutes with, magnetic pickup tools, and all these little things that you can build into your arsenal of tools that save you a few minutes every time you use them adds up to a number of cars throughout the week that you can work on that you couldn't get to before. And if you're flagging hours for a living, man, that's the way you have to do it. So save money where you can by building in efficiency, and you do that by getting tools that make you work that much faster. I'm not going to take this out of the package completely. I'll take it out enough to show you, because it's something I don't want to mess with too much, because it's got to go to a customer. This is a 60-round drum magazine for 223 5.56 ammo. I have a customer who, and I showed you this gun too. A while back, he bought a Panzer AR-12 semi-automatic shotgun. And he said, I got to have a drum mag with that. So there is an aftermarket 20-round shotgun magazine. The thing's huge. It's like, I don't know, like this big around, and it's heavy, and it's just awesome. But I could just picture this guy loading that thing up and bam, 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 just going to the range and having a great time with it. He's a guy who really enjoys his firearms and has a ton of fun with them. And he's thinking about what he wants to do next for his AR. And he says, hey, man, what do they make for drum mags? I'm like, I'll find out for you. They have 60 rounders like this. They have 50 rounders. And there's even a company that has a 100-round magazine, but he opted for the 60 rounder. So this one's from Magpul. They make outstanding stuff for ARs and shotguns. And if you need stocks, sights, magazines, hand grips, lots of stuff is for any of the AR platforms. Magpul is, in my estimation, one of the best companies to deal with, because their products are such high quality. Their pricing is really very good. And they're a local company to me here in Austin, Texas. So I think it's kind of cool that they're literally just a few miles down the road from me. So there's a local connection there too, which I kind of like, but they're a great company with great products. So anything that you need accessory-wise, look at Magpul's stuff first. This is one of theirs. And now it's time for Tool Haul After Dark. I don't know which of these is the coolest to show you first. So we're just going to start with one of them and go from there. The first one is a Smith & Wesson revolver chambered in .44 Magnum. Look at this beast. Stainless steel, 6-shot capacity. Who doesn't love a great classic revolver. You do. Everybody does. These things are awesome. Has an adjustable rear sight with a blade sight in the front. Single or double action. You can cock the hammer, fire from there, or you can fire just like that by pulling the trigger. These things are fantastic. Love them. And this is in great shape. The reason I have this and the other two guns I'm going to show you is because a customer brought them to me for my cleaning service. I'm going to go over that in a minute. But at least want to get through showing you these first, and then we'll talk more about what my customer's goals are for these. It's a two-hander. I mean, this thing is, you load this with 6 rounds and you're going to be wanting to hold it with 2 hands, but it's I don't know, it's great. It's comfortable with the rubber grips on them. It's gonna, I mean, you're gonna feel it when you when you fire. When you get back with this and you start letting them rip, you're gonna feel it in your hand. So make sure that your grip is solid, so it doesn't move around in your hand much, and you take the impact, where you want it to be, right in the strap of your hand. So love these things. 44s they're fun, but you can't shoot them all day long because they're going to get worn out. I remember when I first learned to shoot, I was 18 years old, and a friend of mine was a cop, and he thought it'd be funny to introduce me to shooting by letting me shoot his Smith & Wesson 44, and I will admit that I was not too interested in continuing to shoot after that because it was uncomfortable. But I had work to do on my grip and my stance, and didn't know anything about shooting. But that was my introduction. It's kind of a maze that I took to liking it as much as I did. But he had a good time with it, and then he and I went shooting subsequent times, and then I started buying some guns, and so it was fun. It was a good introduction from a guy that really cared about my development. It was really cool to have a relationship with him over the years. Next, we have a Sig Sauer P239. Action's clear, the magazine's out. It has a beautiful satin slide on it. I don't know if that's bluing. I don't know what that finish is. Kind of looks like a blued steel finish on the bottom. And plastic grip panels. The sights are a 3-dot sight system. Pretty easy to pick up. And it's hammer fired. Has an 8-round magazine. This guy's chambered in 9mm. And I will admit something about this gun. Now, normally I'm a huge fan of the grips of Sig Sauers. 2 things about this one is that it's got a squared front to the grip there. So it feels a little awkward on this corner when you wrap your fingers around it. Not a big deal. Something you can get used to. But here's the thing that I wish were different on this more than anything. The front of the trigger guard is rounded. And when I've learned to shoot, I learned to shoot in a tactical environment where you're taught to put your weak hand finger around the front of the trigger guard, because most tactical guns, well, really any tactical gun I know of, is going to have what they call a combat trigger guard, where it's concave so you can rest your finger and then you can control your muzzle rise a little bit. This does not have that, which makes it a little awkward. Where do I put my finger? I don't know. If I put it down here, now my whole weak hand is now coming down a little far. But if I put it up there, it doesn't rest nice. And so I really wish that was not rounded. I don't know the advantage of this design. If you do, please let me know. I'm not sure that this gives you anything. I mean, why not just make that more like a combat style where you can comfortably rest your finger there? I don't know. That's the way they did it. That is the one thing I would change about any Sig Sauer gun is that with their P239. Now, when we look at their P226, notice it has a combat style trigger guard. So it's concave and it has serrations. And this guy is all about comfort and shootability and controlling the muzzle rise. And this guy's got it all going on. This is also chambered in 9mm. It's also a hammer fired mechanism, and it too has a 3-dot sight. This has aftermarket Hogue grips on it. These are the rubber grips that add a little bit of, they add another dimension to the grip. So you might find that it's a little large for an average size hand. Mine are average size hands, but I don't find them too large for me. I find it fairly comfortable for me, and I like the position that it puts my finger out on the trigger. The pad of my finger rests where you want it to rest on the trigger. Sometimes if the grip is too large, it'll bring your hand back a little bit, and then you're pressing on the trigger more with your tip. Or if the grips are too small, you're going to wrap your finger around the trigger too much. Either of those are bad because if you wrap it around too much, you might find that you're pushing the gun more when you fire, that you're pushing the gun this way. Or if it's not on the trigger enough, you might find that you're pulling the gun a little bit. So where your finger rests on the trigger is important. So this guy here has a lot of the same features as the 239. Both of these have a feature you don't see on every gun, and that they have a decocking lever here. So that if you have the hammer cocked in its rearward position and you want to decock it, I mean, you can thumb the hammer and then pull the trigger and then release the trigger and then lower the hammer, but it's awkward and it's not the safest way to do it. So if you have the hammer back and you want to decock it safely, you just push down on this decocking lever and it does all that for you with no danger of firing the gun. And the 226 has that same feature here. Your hammer's back and you decock it just by pushing the decocking lever, and you don't have to touch the trigger. That's the thing that is the most dangerous part, is when you decock a gun. Otherwise, you have to touch the trigger to do it. And I'll show you on this revolver, same way. When you cock that back, how do I decock it? Well, I have to hold the hammer with one finger and then squeeze the trigger with the other to release the hammer. I move the hammer forward, but now I have to make sure I release my finger off that trigger. Now I can lower the hammer. But sometimes, like you see the hammer gets caught up a little bit halfway through, it's not the smoothest operation in the world. Here's the danger. Same thing with these guns. And I can safely show you this because we're unloaded. You cock it back. I want to decock it. Finger on the hammer, finger on the trigger. Now I can decock it. Let's say the hammer slips out of my thumb. I have the trigger all the way back in its rearward position. What that means is when this hammer falls, it's going to fire a round that's in the chamber. Now, the issue doesn't happen if I have my finger off the trigger, because if the hammer falls, my finger's off the trigger, it can't fire because there's what's called a falling block safety back here. And there's a piece of metal that articulates up and blocks the firing pin from the hammer when your finger is off the trigger. So if the trigger is not in its fully rearward position, like this, you can see how the trigger and the hammer move at the same time. The falling block is moving up and now obscures the firing pin from the hammer. If that trigger is all the way back, that falling block is in its downward position where it exposes the firing pin to the hammer. That's why there is a distinct advantage to a decocking lever, because it eliminates the possibility of me keeping that trigger pulled while I'm releasing the hammer. If all I do is, I'll try to show you here, if all I do is move the decocking lever down, it does all the work itself with no danger of me accidentally discharging the gun. So there's a little lesson in gun safety. Now, let's talk a little bit about why the customer gave these to me for cleaning. He has a number of guns in his collection, and he asked me to clean 3 of them already, and you will have seen a video on those that went up a few weeks ago. So check those out if you haven't, because there were some advanced cleaning techniques in there that I think you're going to find interesting. And if cleaning guns is something you want to do yourself, then there's some good ideas in there that will help you through some tough spots of, well, how do I get at this particular thing? Well, what if my finish is damaged, and how do I spiff it up in ways that I may not have thought about? Because thoroughly cleaning a gun is more than just sending down a bore brush and some patches with solvent on them and wiping the surface. There's a lot to cleaning a gun professionally. When someone gives me a gun to clean, I do far more than that. My rate to clean a handgun is 1 hour of bench time, and that's $60, and I earn every penny, because in addition to inspecting the bore and cleaning that, I also look at things like what's the condition of the barrel here, where it's going to take a brunt of the heat and smoke from a round going off. What is the condition of the front of the cylinder here, where you can see there's buildup of dirt and scoring from heat and discoloration that occurs there. What's it like in the small crevices, like the contour here that accepts the ejector rod? And then you want to look underneath the ejector. What's it like under here? And there's all these little details that I look at, and I make sure to get thoroughly cleaned. There isn't a square centimeter of a gun that goes uninspected. For guns like these, I will remove the grips and the grip panels and look underneath that and thoroughly inspect the mechanism. And when you look at the contours of a semi-automatic pistol like this, there's like these grooves and there's these serrations all up in here, and there's going to be, these recesses where the hammer strikes the firing pin, and there's just all kinds of places for dirt, dust, and oil to hide. So the whole thing comes apart, and I do a thorough cleaning and inspection. I'm very grateful to this customer. He's a fellow who found me, I think, just by Googling gun stores around him. And he wasn't too happy, I think, with the experience he had at other stores. So the way we do our gun business is very one-on-one. It's all very personal. Someone comes in by appointment into our sales office, and we sit down with them, go over what they want to do. So he has all the time in the world to talk to me about what he wants, why he wants it done. Is there a particular sentimental value? Is there anything he wants me to preserve on the guns, and go over it, pointedly. And I love being able to do that for somebody, because that's a very personal kind of service. And in fact, just to keep bragging about Ryan that I talked about earlier, who's getting that BT600 battery tester, he told me a couple of weeks ago, he says, I saw the gun cleaning video. He says, I got a rifle that belonged to my grandfather. Would you want to do a cleaning on that? And he has a chance to tell me precisely what he wants and what he doesn't want, because there's certain characteristics of an old rifle that was in the family that he wants to make sure are preserved while we do work in other areas to clean it the way he wants. So I really enjoy getting to know people and their desires and their goals for their firearm ownership that way, because it's deeply meaningful to them, which means it's deeply meaningful to me. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this video, because I had a chance to show you some things you haven't seen before. Keep watching the channel. I'm going to do a whole video on cleaning these 3 handguns. I'm going to do a video on repairing that 3/4 inch Matco air impact I mentioned earlier. We're going to be doing a flyer drop video for the final quarter of 2023. And of course, plenty of Tools in the Hall episodes still to come. So do me a favor and click down here now to subscribe so you don't miss any of it. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, use a tool. Don't be one.